The controversy surrounding transgender athlete Lia Thomas continues. For those that aren't familiar, Lia Thomas is biologically male, has been on hormone replacement therapy for several years, and has moved from the men's division swimming into the women's, where Lia Thomas is now the champion. There are many conservatives that are outright saying biological males should not be competing against females, and of course there are many feminists who aren't conservative saying the same thing. Now, according to the progressives, these would be the trans exclusionary radical feminists, but of course the controversy is still here, particularly because it was only recently that Lia Thomas won the championship. In the latest story, former Olympic swimmer says her final spot was taken by Lia Thomas. A former Olympic swimmer and college athlete claims she lost her spot in the NCAA finals because transgender swimmer Lia Thomas beat her in a 500-meter free swim. Reka Gyorgy, a former Olympic swimmer for Hungary at the 2016 Rio Olympics and student at Virginia Tech, placed 17th in the March 17th Division 1 swim meet. Now, Gyorgy says that Thomas took her final chance to compete in a college meet. There are several things that need to be addressed in the statement from Reka, as well as why Reka is complaining, what other female athletes have to say, and what conservative media even does here. The issue for me, as I've expressed ad nauseum, is that these female athletes competing against a biological male are not complaining about it. They're supporting the rules. They're supporting the system. And yes, I kid you not, they are speaking out in support of Lia Thomas. My question then is, why are conservatives mad about something the swimmers themselves are not mad about? Now, of course, we have several stories where there have been some swimmers speaking anonymously or privately, and family members who also speak anonymously or privately. And some have come out with their names complaining about it. But if the women who are actively competing say nothing and actively support Lia Thomas, I don't understand where the complaint... Look, I get it. I understand conservatives don't like the idea of males competing against females in any capacity. But my response then is, maybe you should be more involved in the schools and the rulemaking, or make a new system where other women can compete and not include biological males. My issue is just ultimately it comes down to who's really complaining about this. So let me start with the first thing I can mention here from the Washington Examiner. A big challenge for everybody in understanding what's going on is language. Here we have a factually incorrect statement by Christopher Hutton, breaking news reporter. And Chris, I hope you correct this. He says that Lia Thomas is a transgender female swimmer. He says, because transgender female swimmer Lia Thomas beat her in a 500-meter free swim. The first thing we need to do to understand what's going on is agree on what words mean. Now, of course, the left doesn't, and the right doesn't agree with the left, but there are some things still we can agree on. While there are many progressives that believe female and male are interchangeable with man or woman, for the most part, at the higher level in colleges and in the rules, how Twitter and YouTube works, male and man are distinct. Now, of course, conservatives don't agree with that, but at least we can all agree on what female and male means to a greater degree than what the left is willing to concede with man or woman. The point being, speaking in terms of the left's own argument, transgender female is incorrect. It would imply that Lia Thomas was born biologically female and is now transgender. That is to imply that Lia Thomas is a female who identifies as a man. That is incorrect. Lia Thomas is a transgender male, meaning someone who is male and is transgender, so they identify as the opposing gender identity. Now, of course, it's really hard to figure out what definitions are when both sides speak different languages. So the best thing I can say is it's important that even conservative outlets or any news outlet be factually correct and make sure they're using the proper terminology, because transgender female is confusing. One of the reasons I bring this up, and some may say it's nitpicking, is that conservatives tend to show an image of Mac Beggs, a biological female competing against biological females, but identifying as a man, and I believe taking testosterone. What ends up happening is, because this individual who is a female, a biological female, XX chromosomes, identifies as a man and competes against females, conservatives believe it's someone who was born biologically male. I know, confused yet? The point is, if the right wants to get at this, you've got to be very precise in your terminology. And you also got to know your stories better, because right now, following the Lia Thomas story, conservatives keep posting the Mac Beggs thing. And I'm like, you are posting two females wrestling with each other, both with XX chromosomes. Now, if you're concerned about testosterone and hormone replacement, by all means, be concerned about it. The issue is Mac Beggs is not a male. Now, the most important thing here that needs to be brought up, Reka Gyorgy not only issued a statement of support for Lia Thomas, Reka Gyorgy is only complaining after being bumped, not before competing. And that's where I come out and say, how dare you? Look, I'm not going to pretend to be mad when no one is mad. Conservatives are mad, but the conservatives who are mad are not the ones involved in or competing in this. You want to tell me that parents are mad? They can come out with their names and say, this is who I am mad. Because for the time being, an anonymous statement from someone I can't confirm or verify means nothing when the females competing against the male are openly saying they support this. Let me ask you, if we were to create a female division that excluded transgender individuals, who would be competing in it? Now, of course, I think it's fair to say that all of these women, these females in the NCAA championship would probably switch divisions because they have a better chance of winning. But that just says to me they don't care about Lia Thomas. They only care about winning. If you are inherently selfish, don't stand for any causes, and only speak up when you get bumped, sounds to me like you're just trying to argue now because you want privileges or benefits. Reka Gyorgy had every opportunity to speak up before competing and placing 17th, thus getting bumped. If she did, I would actually value her statement a bit more. But the next big issue here that's really important, that is highlighted in the statement by Reka Gyorgy and highlighted in another article from the National Review, is that all of the parents and even Reka say they outright support Lia Thomas and what Lia Thomas is going through. And so if that's the case, well, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you're complaining about. I don't know what I understand. Look, I get it. Conservatives are saying we don't like this. But if everyone involved does or is unwilling to stand up for it, I'm sorry. If you are unwilling to stand up for your ideas and values do not deserve to persist. Freedom, liberty, all of these things I value, and I will stand up for them and speak out for them. Now, I want to read you the statement from Reka Gyorgy, which I think it's important to point out because she actively supports and fully stands with Lia Thomas. Some people have said, how can you criticize them when you use YouTube and YouTube censors people? First and foremost, there is no 1-0 binary moral line. I wish there was. It's not that easy. So by all means, if you don't like the idea that I would use this platform while other people are being censored, by all means, bring it up and state that opinion. You're entitled to it. In fact, that's the point. You should be saying what your concerns are and speak out against those, you have an issue with. More importantly, however, with Reka Gyorgy and these other, first of all, the parents, anonymously issuing statements. I don't know who they are, and I have no idea if they're involved. Why don't you come out and say, my daughter is this, I am this, and I have concerns about this? You don't have to be mean or anything, but you can say, I don't like it. They don't do that. As for this criticism, I'd love to address. I'm on YouTube. I regularly complain about this. I regularly platform people who have been censored by YouTube on more than one occasion. Alex Jones, Steve Bannon, for instance, good examples. I think we'd have Alex on like 3 or 4 times and Bannon on, I think, 3 times now. So, of course, I don't like censorship. I regularly protest against it. I do use this platform. It does suck, but guess what? I can bring people on the show at risk to getting banned, because whatever, and have them speak their minds and have those conversations. Now, as for the female athletes, I'm not asking all of them by demand, quit. I am saying they could choose to boycott it all at once. There's a big difference between a platform with billions of people, and it's hard to coordinate, and 15 women. They could just be like, do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree? Okay. Well, they don't. Now, I'm still not saying they should quit. They could all at least wear a ribbon. They could all at least, put a color on their arm, which is a sign of protest. At the very least, speak out. If these women were speaking out, I would be 100% on their side, but I have no idea if they're even mad about this. Now, Reka Gyorgy seems to be mad, but let me read. She says, "My name is Reka Gyorgy from Hungary. It could be Gyorgy, I don't know. Gyorgy is the only... whatever. I'm a 2016 Rio Olympian, represented Virginia Tech for the past 5 years, a 2-time ACC champion, 2-time All-American, and 3-time honorable mention All-American. With all due respect, I would like to address something that is a problem in our sport right now and hurting athletes, especially female swimmers. Everyone has heard and known about transgender Lia Thomas and her case, including all the issues and concerns that a situation brought to our sport. I'd like to point out that I respect and fully stand with Lia Thomas. I am convinced that she is no different than me or any other D1 swimmer who has woken up at 5 a.m. her entire life for morning practices. She has sacrificed family vacations and holidays for a competition. She has pushed herself to the limit to be the best athlete she could be. She is doing what she is passionate about and deserves that right. On the other hand, I would like to critique the NCAA rules that allow her to compete against us who are biologically women. No, sorry, I don't support you at all. In fact, I will heavily criticize you. Do you want to fully respect and stand with Lia Thomas? By all means, do so. Lia Thomas has abided by all of the rules set forth. The only time this person comes out and complains about the rules is when they lost. Let's go back to the censorship analogy. You have these leftists, and they say, well, you got banned. Too bad. YouTube's a private corporation. They can do what they want. Free speech warriors are wrong. And then they get censored and go, this isn't fair. I'm not supposed to be censored. Same thing. I don't give those people the benefit of the doubt. I say, welcome to the world you created by supporting this. To Reka Gyorgy, I'm sorry, but it's a good thing you lost. It is. It's a good thing you got booted, and your words mean nothing to me. You have every opportunity if you have an issue with Lia Thomas competing, you have every opportunity every day to post on social media, to speak out against it. It is only now that you have been booted, you are saying, I actually have an issue with this. Sorry, that's not how it works. You can't argue after the fact the rules you agreed with and fully stood beside. That's wrong. It's wrong to do that to Lia Thomas. I'll give you my opinion. I don't believe Lia Thomas should be competing against biological females, period. I think that there are advantages that come from prenatal testosterone. That science basically shows this. And I think that perhaps the best thing to do is create a new division. That's it. The problem I have here, let me break this down a little bit further. We have, first and foremost, a statement from, let me show you. Just behind Lia Thomas is Brooke Ford, a young woman who brought home a silver medal. I believe that treating people with respect and dignity is more important than any trophy or record will ever be, which is why I will not have a problem racing against Lia at NCAAs this year, Ford said about the situation. Ford could teach certain media outlets many things about respect and dignity. So the second place in the 200-yard freestyle and the 500-yard freestyle, Brooke Ford is just behind the 500-yard free, totally said, this is great. I'm good. This is awesome. This is the way it should be. All of these women are supporting this. If they want to lose, I just don't know what you want me to be mad about. We also have this from Erica Sullivan, American Olympic swimmer, why I'm proud to support trans athletes like Lia Thomas. They're absolutely on board with all of this. Well, there you go. It is only now, all of a sudden, that Reka has a complaint. I don't agree with it. Let me show you this article from the National Review, which I think makes a point very well. Parents of female swimmers speak out. Shame on the NCAA. This is from Madeline Kearns, writing, when I spoke with parents of female swimmers at the NCAA Women's Swimming Championship this week, there were typically two main concerns they wanted to communicate. First, they are not transphobic. Second, allowing a biological male to compete against their daughters is unfair. As much as I sympathize with the falsely accused, so long as avoiding accusations of transphobia is the primary concern, this madness will continue. Okay, well, that's what I can say. My personal opinion on this matter, maybe you need a separate division. However, the parents and the athletes are more worried about being called transphobic than about their sport and the rules. Enough. conservatives need to stop supporting those who do not support themselves. Maybe it's a little too crass. You know, maybe there are some people who need a little help. But maybe there's a line, and that is to say, if Matt Walsh, for instance, who's regularly spoken up about issues of transgender ideology and things like that, if none of these parents are speaking up, and then he came forward and he said, "Everyone, listen, you need to speak up now. I will be that first person to step up and take the hit," and then everyone said, "You know what? All right, we're standing up," I'd be like, absolutely, okay, fantastic. Here's the issue I have. Matt Walsh has spoken up. Ben Shapiro has spoken up. How many conservative personalities are speaking up? How many LGBTQ personalities are speaking up themselves? There's been Caitlyn Jenner. There's been Blair White. There's one transgender athlete, I believe a marathon runner, a scientist who has even spoken up. If after all of this, the women in the NCAA are still unwilling to say anything, and not only that, actively support it, I have no idea what anyone at this point is complaining about. And in fact, I think Reka is extremely distasteful. For all of you to come out and welcome Lia Thomas publicly and now be mad and use being trans against Lia, if you came out from the get-go and said, "I won't swim in this," or "I will speak up against it," at the very least, just express your discontent, I would have been like, I respect the statements. They're not doing it. They're not. So this is where we are. I don't know what the political controversy is at this point or why anyone is acting like they're concerned about this. Everyone's saying Emma Wayant, she's the real winner. I'm like, no, she isn't. She supports this. She accepts second place with a smile on her face. It's just the weirdest thing to me. It is. So I don't look, I can tell you one thing. There is a very serious question over the rules and whether or not they make sense. That's fair. But I'm not an NCAA swimmer. One thing I often point out, which I think is very important, is this. This is swimmingworldmagazine.com saying, Lia Thomas is not the only transgender swimmer to make the 100 freestyle final at the NCAA women's division. Isaac Hennig is a transgender swimmer for Yale. His story is very different from Thomas, but also extremely similar in a lot of ways. Hennig identifies as a transgender man, but has not gone through hormone replacement therapy, so is eligible to compete at the meet. Hennig finished tied for 5th in the 100 freestyle in 47.32, tied with Louisville's Gabby Albiero. Okay, they're using male pronouns for Hennig. Hennig is female, but identifies as a man, and thus the media outlet and the left will use male pronouns. My question is, why is a man competing against women? Is it the female division? No, because Lia Thomas is biologically male. Okay. Is it the women's division? No, because Isaac Hennig identifies as a man. So what are we doing? That I will point out and say, I take issue with how they're operating this because there's no logic behind it. The logic could simply be that it's the testosterone, it's the lower testosterone division. Okay. Maybe what we do then is we have like testosterone concentration brackets. You know how we do like with like boxing or UFC or whatever, MMA? There'll be like, you know, the featherweight or the welterweight or the heavyweight champion. Yeah, we're not going to put a dude who's 5'5" and 160 pounds up against a dude who's 6'3" and 250 pounds of muscle. It's like, that's dumb. But what if we just separated MMA from men and women? Then you would not have any of these smaller ranking guys. Stands to reason then, maybe there would just be weight divisions or height divisions. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be broken up that way. Truth be told, though, I still think there's going to be inherent differences that are more pronounced between males and females, which play a role, such as body fat percentage. Center of gravity is different between males and females. It changes if you're exercising and building upper body muscle mass and things like that. But women will still have a much lower center of gravity, which is interesting. It is really interesting. I was reading about skateboarding, and I read some things about how women have better grind balance because they're lower center of gravity because of the hip size versus shoulder size. You can also see this in this thing you do where you stand completely flat against a wall and then try and bend down and pick up a chair. Women, females, can do it because their center of gravity is lower than men. Men fall forward because their center of gravity is pulled higher. That means that men can jump higher, but will need to crouch lower to be more stably balanced, things like that. So anyway, I digress. Look, the point is, what we're trying to work through here, in my opinion, is how we create divisions between people so that they're fair. If in fighting, we go by weight, you still have a men's division, but then you have, a heightened division class. Maybe that's what we could do. Maybe what we do for the women's division is you have a 6 foot plus, 5'8" to 5'11", 5'6" to 5'7", and then Lia Thomas would not be competing against any of these other 5'5" females. Maybe we make a transgender division, and then Isaac Hennig and Lia Thomas can compete against each other. Lia Thomas, of course, not being on hormone replacement therapy, which has hindered Thomas's ability to compete, and Hennig, who is biologically female but identifies as a man. I think the problem right now is there's no rules. That's it. The rules the NCAA has put forward, I can plainly say, make no sense. As for whether or not the rules should remain or change, my personal opinion is I don't understand why they would stay this way when it doesn't make sense. Either Hennig needs to be removed for being a man in a women's division, or Lia Thomas because it's a female division. You can't have it both ways. It's confusing. It makes no sense. The problem, however, ultimately, though, is what I revert back to. You know what? I don't know why I should be complaining about something I'm not involved in. I do want to add one final thought, though. I'm curious as to where this all leads because I believe the ultimate conclusion to everything is outright transhumanism. Hormone replacement therapy, I believe, started mostly in the 60s. Hormones were first identified in 1905, and I can't remember what the first hormone identified was, but it was around like 1904, 1905. And that's when they were like, hey, look at these things, hormones. I believe that they were discovered and then the term was created like a year later or something like that. It was in the 60s when they started investigating, I believe they were investigating like helping women with menopause and hormone treatments. So the ability to take hormones to generate secondary female sexual characteristics is relatively new and became prominent in the 90s. So only within the past 30 or so years, which is why we're only now seeing these things happen, well, right now. You now have people who have been on hormone replacement therapy for long enough to have these questions be brought up. But imagine a world before the discovery of hormones. Someone who felt identified as a female or a male, a man or a woman when they weren't, the corresponding biological sex, they'd have no means of doing anything to change it. I mean, they could dress up, but they couldn't change what their hormones were doing to their body. Now we have an interesting question. A technology has been developed. Hormones have been isolated, and now we can suppress hormones and then supplant them with alternatives. That means a biological male can have their testosterone reduced, and they can introduce estrogen, generating female secondary sexual characteristics. It doesn't change the biological sex. But the technology, it is the technological advancement that has created a cultural phenomenon. I'm curious about what happens in the future, 50 years, when we have Neuralink, and someone can enter a digital world where they can completely manufacture what their body will be. Now, Neuralink is in its infancy. Who knows how long until we're at the point where you can attach I don't think it'll be a hard input. It could just be something you go on the side of your head or whatever that syncs up with an implant and then sends impulses to your brain to simulate reality. Let's say in the simulated reality, you can touch, smell, see, and hear, and it's just like it's actual reality almost. It's not base reality, though. You could be playing Skyrim and actually feeling the heat in your hand as you throw a fireball. Imagine that world. Now imagine this. In today's reality, we do a lot of our work on the internet. Many people have a digital persona that never interacts in reality. There are people who work from home and don't actually meet people. In fact, we have writers at timcast.com. I interact through chat, and I never see them. They can come over and hang out, and they do sometimes, but for the most part, I never see them. Our digital personalities communicate more than our physical realities, our physical personalities. In which case, what happens when the metaverse becomes real? And instead of commuting to work, we create a virtual reality office where we can sit down and talk to each other in real time. What happens when we have that? And one of the things we do with Timcast IRL, we don't like doing remote shows because there's something missing when you're looking into a camera at somebody and hearing them talk versus sitting in front of them and actually arguing and talking over each other. What happens when we can sit, argue, and talk over each other in the neural linked metaverse? What happens when you can create any body? Well, I'll tell you this. A transgender individual, like Lia Thomas, who enters into the metaverse, is likely going to create a fully biologically female avatar, not a male body that is transitioning. They would, I would assume, prefer to just create a totally female avatar. In that space, you might not know who that person is outside of that reality, because you could go into the metaverse, or whatever you want to call it, go for a job interview and meet your coworkers, and you meet a bunch of strong and built 6'5" men. Everyone's chiseled. No one's out of shape. Everyone's handsome and gorgeous. And you talk to them and say, hey, I have a great personality. And then you maybe you're a woman, a biological female. You enter the metaverse with a persona identical to your actual body, or a facsimile of it, because that's how you identify. And then you meet a very strong and attractive male, and you hit it off. And then later on, you realize it's actually a female playing, who identifies as a male. There's going to be profound impacts on society as technology advances, and people will be able to become whatever they want. To put it simply, get ready for some dramatic changes. And I don't think there's anything you can do about it. You'll enter the metaverse and you'll go to your workspace where you're working on a movie or a digital project, and there's going to be a cartoon tiger sitting in front of you, because that's what people identify as. And he's going to talk like this with a voice filter. That will be reality. Not base reality, but where you do most of your work. So what do? Do conservatives say, no, we can't allow anonymity in this space? Everybody has to be a representation of their actual physical self in the metaverse. Of course not. That would never happen. You will see identity issues never before seen. The idea that someone could actually be biologically male and transition is only possible because of technology. That is to say, don't be surprised if once we're in the metaverse in 30 to 40 years, you will be working alongside Optimus Prime and The Mask, Jim Carrey's The Mask character. If someone has the ability to take a hormone, a technology, and to transition, grow female breasts, or grow a beard, don't you think there will be people who will say, I want to be a dragon? And they can use the metaverse to express that desire? They will. I don't think there's any real difference. Now, I think the interesting thing is, regardless of what you represent yourself as in the metaverse, in base reality, your body will have a profound impact on what's happening. Testosterone makes people aggressive, males or females. So males tend to be more aggressive. In the metaverse, you will see the people who are more agreeable with a higher propensity towards being biologically female in base reality, and the people who are more aggressive and assertive will have a tendency towards being male in base reality. And you'll be able to track that data. But regardless, I'll leave it there. Things are changing. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.